What if the company everyone thought was losing the AI race actually owned the track? Welcome to this explainer where we're going to completely dismantle one of the most persistent myths in modern tech. For years now, the prevailing story has been that a legacy giant fell asleep at the wheel, outmaneuvered by flashy newcomers. But as we pull back the curtain on the raw data today, you're going to see an entirely different reality hiding right in plain sight.
So the popular narrative insisted Google missed the artificial intelligence wave, right? We were told nimble startups left them in the dust. But honestly, that was just the surface. The daily news cycle thrives on drama and sudden disruptions. While everyone else was distracted by flashy chatbots and viral beta tests, Google actually spent the last decade quietly building the ocean. They weren't reacting to a sudden trend. They were patiently constructing the hidden depths that the rest of the industry is now forced to swim in.
The timeline here tells the real story. While the public was busy mocking an early, awkward launch for Bard, Google's researchers had already written the original mathematical blueprint for modern AI. That famous "Attention is all you need" paper back in 2017, it didn't just advance Google, it literally built the foundation for their competitors. The very models that supposedly dethroned them were built on their math. And they backed that theory up with cold, hard infrastructure, which ultimately culminated in Apple selecting Google as their primary AI partner in 2026. To really understand this silent ascendance, we have to look at the ground floor, the raw, physical hardware. Because the definitive rule of this new era is simple, and frankly, it's ruthless. You cannot dominate the software if you don't own the silicon. You can have the most elegant algorithms in the world, but if you don't control the processing power that brings them to life, you are entirely at the mercy of the market. And Google absolutely refuses to be at anyone's mercy. While competitors bled cash and begged for scraps on brutal Nvidia waitlists, Google didn't wait for anyone. They've actually been manufacturing their own custom tensor processing unit since 2015. That is over a decade of compounding quiet advantage while the rest of the industry literally stood in line. When you don't have to buy your chips at a massive premium from a third party, your ability to experiment, iterate, and scale multiplies exponentially. They were building their own forge while everyone else was just buying swords. And here's the ultimate flex of that massive infrastructure. Major rivals are actually paying Google for server space. Take Anthropic, the creators of the Claude model and supposedly a direct, lethal threat. They committed to building over a gigawatt of compute right on Google's TPU farms. Now, a gigawatt is enough energy to power a medium-sized city. Google isn't just running the race alongside these upstarts, they are literally renting out the track to the other runners. Every stride their competitors take inherently profits the empire. This perfectly highlights the visibility divide. Over the last few years, the tech industry became utterly obsessed with highly visible, viral consumer apps. You know, the things that break the internet and dominate your social media feeds for a week. But Google deployed a much more dangerous playbook. Invisible, zero-friction, everyday product integration. They understood that the ultimate technology is the kind you eventually stop noticing. The kind that weaves so deeply into your daily routine that using it doesn't feel like a choice, it just feels like reality. They realized true dominance means AI without the app download. You don't have to change a single behavior because the intelligence is already seamlessly woven into the products you rely on. Just think about it. Google Search, Gmail, Docs, Maps. Hundreds of millions of people use this technology daily without altering a single workflow. They didn't ask you to adopt a brand new habit, create a new account, or learn some clunky new interface. They just made your existing habits incredibly smart. Then you factor in the staggering scale of their distribution. When you natively integrate your foundational models into an operating system that controls 72% of smartphones globally, you completely bypass the distribution bottleneck. Android isn't just phone software, it is a vast, immediate, and unstoppable deployment vehicle. Startups have to fight tooth and nail for every single user acquisition. Google just flips a switch and their models instantly live inside the pockets of billions of people. That is an impenetrable moat. And their reach obviously didn't stop at Android. January 2026 marked what we can call the Apple flipping point. In a move that truly shocked the tech world, Apple explicitly selected Google to power a rebuilt Siri across 1 billion iPhones. Think about the immense gravity of that decision for a second. Even a company utterly obsessed with total ecosystem control realized they couldn't compete with the underlying infrastructure. Google's foundation models are now the silent, invisible engine beating inside their biggest rival's hardware. But to truly grasp the monumental scale of this empire, we have to pull back. We have to look past the consumer chatbots, past the search engines, and dive deep into hard, world-altering science. Because if you think this company is just out there optimizing ad clicks and organizing your inbox, you are missing the profound reality of what they are actually building behind closed doors. Listen, this isn't about generating emails or writing code. This is about restructuring reality. Google DeepMind's AlphaFold successfully mapped over 200 million protein structures, which fundamentally altered modern biology and drug discovery forever. The scientific community didn't just casually applaud this breakthrough, they awarded these researchers the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in October 2024. So while other tech companies are playing around with text generation, Google is actively decoding the literal building blocks of life itself. Out on the physical streets, that dominance continues to expand. What critics once dismissed as a ridiculous, money-burning moonshot experiment is now a massive commercial reality. Waymo is completing over 500,000 driverless rides every single week across 10 major U.S. cities. Just let that sink in. 500,000 rides. And with Gemini testing as the in-car brain, the scope is expanding even further. Google isn't just moving data through fiber optic cables anymore, they are moving atoms through our physical cities. So you might be wondering, how does this all pay off? Well, every single piece of this architecture, from the custom silicon to the billions of smartphones to the self-driving cars navigating our streets, is perfectly designed to feed a financial machine of unprecedented scale and ruthless efficiency. The underlying science is brilliant, for sure, but the real masterpiece is how that science is converted directly into an unstoppable stream of capital.
The true power of their hardware is economic force. By training massive foundational models on their 7th-generation Ironwood chips, Google slashed their AI serving costs by an astonishing 78% in a single year. In an industry where crushing compute costs are actively bankrupting promising startups every single day, cost reduction is the ultimate weapon. Google practically made it economically impossible for smaller players to survive, simply because the cost of doing business is effectively zero for the house.
This brutal economic advantage translates directly to the bottom line. It drove cloud revenue up an unprecedented 63% in a single quarter, slamming right into a staggering $20 billion. This isn't some projected future value or hyped-up venture capital valuation. This is raw, quarterly revenue generated by the undeniable superiority of their computing infrastructure. The servers aren't just processing data at this point. The infrastructure is practically printing cash. And that tidal wave of cloud cash pushed total annual Alphabet revenue past the $400 billion mark for the very first time in their entire corporate history. The scale of capital generation happening here is almost mathematically hard to comprehend. We're talking about a financial velocity that resembles the GDP of a small nation, all generated by owning the entire vertical stack of the defining technology of our century.
But here's the kicker. They aren't just hoarding this mountain of capital. They are aggressively weaponizing it to ensure no one can ever catch up. Alphabet is projected to spend an estimated $185 billion on new AI infrastructure in 2026 alone. Let me repeat that, $185 billion on infrastructure alone. They aren't just outspending the competition, they are outspending the entire valuations of their closest rivals combined. The game is mathematically rigged.
All of this builds to one quiet, undeniable reality. When the company controlling the physical hardware also controls the scientific frontier, the global distribution channels, and an endless, weaponized supply of capital, who really holds the future? So the next time someone tries to tell you this company is lagging behind nimble startups, look at the undeniable evidence. Look at the silicon, the science, and the scale, and ask yourself, who actually owns the track?